So we looked at the user side first, then we looked at the technology side, and we did some benchmarking as usual. And it was actually really pleasing that the iManage system met practically all of our requirements. So for our users, a knowledge management system that looks and feels the same, that sits together with iManage quite well, we just knew it was going to be easier for people to start to use it with confidence without a lot of training. So we tried to think very hard about our stakeholders. Now, stakeholders in terms of users are primarily the legal teams, but not exclusively. And we knew that the content was therefore primarily legal and regulatory content.
Well, we scoped out the project largely through discovery sessions with a number of users. Didn't want to just focus on knowledge teams or on the project team itself, but trying to talk to the wide variety of people so that we could meet the needs of the entire firm.
Then we started to talk to IT. And an equally rigorous approach was taken to defining the IT specification. So yes, I think it was a fairly robust exercise in terms of scoping and drawing together those requirements. And I think that was important because anyone's head can be turned by a glossy system, but it's got to be one that actually works for the firm. And we were confident that the one we chose would.
One of the main things that we spend time looking at is the metadata. The metadata is really, really important to get right because it is one of the main ways lawyers are discovering their content.
So strategy around content is incredibly important, and it will vary from area to area. So in some transactional areas, for example, corporate and real estate, you'll be looking mainly at precedents. So you're looking at a template-based approach and making sure that those templates and precedents are as effective and well annotated as you possibly can, with plenty of metadata around them. At the same time, people look quite hard at know-how. Now, for us, know-how is an example. It's an example of where you might have used a precedent for a particular situation that's had a particular feature. So our business researchers produce a lot of client profiles, sector profiles, profiles of particular developments in different areas. Now, those are high-value reports. They use the subscription tools we have incredibly effectively, but they also draw down what the legal teams know. I would say, though, the most significant area of content development is around our sector knowledge and expertise. Now, a lot of that is nowhere in the published resources. It's not even touched on. So actually having easy access to the last major piece of renewables work that we did, that's really valuable to people. And it saves the partner time for having to answer repeat questions and download the same information to multiple different people. So we spoke to the PSLs right at the outset of the project to think about adoption. We know that change is incredibly important with our very busy lawyers, and we wanted to ensure that we had excellent adoption right from the outset. So we consulted with the PSLs. So having familiar artefacts in place, such as the landing pages that they all know and love, that was the number one feature that the professional support lawyers wanted to see. So we were then able to unpack the significant improvements that iManage had made to a knowledge management system to show them how they could browse, how they could search, browse and search. It's a bit like online shopping. People got it quite quickly, but we did need to think quite hard about giving them a familiar starting point. The outcome and feedback right from go live has been positive. We had a lot of engagement really from the outset. People liked what they saw. We used the branding quite extensively in our communication so that people became familiar with it. From the outset, we asked people to give us questions, give us glitches, anything that they couldn't do easily, we turned into an FAQ. Now, you won't be surprised to hear we had to do something a little more robust than just talk to people. So we took 7 or 8 factors from our business case and we fed back to the board on how things were going. So a couple of those were the number of submissions that we were receiving, obviously the amount of usage we were seeing on the system, people's content, what were we seeing, which teams were using it most, and being able to produce quarterly reports on usage and submissions to share with the PSLs and their KML&D partners. That means that quarterly they can sit down in their own areas, look at usage, look at any gaps, because we've been able to use Power BI across the iManage data to look for things like searches that have produced no results. Well, that's brilliant because that shows you what people want to find and haven't found. I think we all saw a real hype cycle around about April, May time when, frankly, it was going to change the world. And I still believe it's going to have a transformational impact, although not sure what the timescales are. But my personal view around generative AI and knowledge management is it gives us real opportunities. So I think it will become easier to get to a vanilla level starting point in terms of understanding what the law is in a given area. The thing that ends up differentiating us then is the knowledge that isn't contained in that published content. It's the wisdom, the expertise, the experience that we have that's actually manifested in our curated internal collections. It's what they know, it's that tacit knowledge, that 40%. And I think that Knowledge Unlock will help people to have discussions around documents that will unlock some of that tacit knowledge.
I think it's really important that curated knowledge is a place where we can ground things. So not just on the actual content itself and to be able to say where things were generated from, but also the context provided by the projects, that are around things like metadata, adding context, taxonomies, etc. So having this great asset and the context that comes around this asset, around these projects that Matt and Jack and Carol have delivered around their know-how, will mean that in future lawyers will be able to ask questions in all different environments. I see a lot of these projects as very foundational now, as well as being hugely useful to lawyers to use this know-how and precedents. But I see this as foundational in how we'll start to ground generative AI in the future.
Our investments in Knowledge Unlocked, in our curated content, and in all of the metadata work we've done to make it really easy to find, I think that's a good investment. It's looking good in the face of Gen AI.